What's up, monster truck fans? Thomas Borders here with another segment of Monkey Wrench. What we're going to do a little bit different here on our segments today. We got Roger Geiger with Geiger Motorsports here. We're going to interview him, kind of give you guys a little bit of background, how he got started, where his life has taken him as far as the monster truck world. You know, he's one of the few guys that can say he's ran USA 1 and Bigfoot, and he's still out here doing it. Roger, man, you know, you've been doing it a long time. I can remember as a little kid, we kind of had a little bit of discussion earlier in the shop, talking about the first time we met down in Memphis, Tennessee at the Pyramids. My dad was running there, you were running. That's kind of the first time we met each other. But, you know, kind of tell us how you got started. You know, one day, some people say they woke up and just decided they're going to run a monster truck. Some people are born into it, as I was. But tell us how you got started.
Back in '91 is when we bought our first truck. Actually, my wife and I bought the very first truck while we were on our honeymoon, believe it or not. I knew I was going to get into motorsports, into monster trucks and everything, and she wanted to be a part of it, so we got married and decided we were going to go ahead and buy a monster truck. And while we were actually on our honeymoon in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, we ended up buying the first monster truck. We went by and looked at it, what have you, and then a couple of weeks later, a month or so later, we ended up buying it. But we started back in '91, and that was an old lease spring truck called Bad News. And
it actually came up for sale just about a year or so ago. I seen it up for sale.
Yes, it did.
It's crazy it's still around.
It is. It's not quite the same condition that I had it, but it's part of the history of it, I guess. But we started back then, and then I ran that truck, bought it, and lightened the truck up a little bit, and doubled the horsepower in it, put a blown big block Chevrolet engine in it, and we campaigned it for about a year or so while I was actually started building. Right after I bought that is when they started coming out with the tube chassis trucks. So then I thought, okay, now I'm behind again already. I just got started and behind already. But we ended up running that truck for about a year or so, and then while that time was going on, I actually started building the tube chassis truck. And that was Quadzilla 1, and then we ended up, we ran it for a few years, and then Ford came out with the Super Duty, and we took it, and I wanted to update to get to a newer body style, have a newer looking truck, a body and everything on it. So I was still campaigning that truck, so I built a second chassis, and we called it the Quadzilla 2. So we updated and went to the Super Duty body on that. And then we did that for several years and everything, and then come across some other opportunities come available for us.
Yeah, so talking about the Quadzilla, where did the name come about for that? Everybody's always wondered how the trucks got their names. You know, my dad's truck came from my mistress. My mom said he spent more time with the truck than he did her. So she said, you might as well call it your mistress. So that's where that name came from. You know, everybody's got this story. What made you pick Quadzilla?
We were actually, it was probably around Christmas time. It was a family function, and everybody knew I was doing the monster truck thing. So I just asked the family, I said, you know, anybody got any ideas for monster trucks? You know, throw it out here at me and everything. And actually my brother-in-law, Steven, spoke up and said, he said, how about Quadzilla? And I go, what do you mean? And he said, well, Quad's 4 and Godzilla's the big monster. Yeah. And he said, that's a basic 4-wheel monster. And so that's what we said, that sounds good, we'll just go with that. So that's what we did. So we had to run Quadzilla, and the bodies and stuff are still around. And down the road, it may come back around. You never know. You never know.
You know, it is a neat concept, a neat design. You know, set up the way it was. I've seen a picture of one of your old designs. Kind of had the dinosaur with the tires on. I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, especially as a little kid. You know, because we mentioned first time we met down in Memphis, Tennessee. You were running down there. We kind of talked a little bit about that story. You know, that was Dad never knew who you were. We only lived a couple hours apart, and here we are, hours from home, and we all meet up. But you know, you were driving Quadzilla there, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So you ran Quadzilla. How'd you end up placing in there? Did you do real well?
The truck worked really well. So we were really happy with it and everything, but we just kind of changed directions, and we started adding, one day add another chassis to the fleet. We had to start running 2 trucks, so we started, you know, kind of looking around, see who could build us a chassis and everything.
Seems to be kind of the story of everybody. You know, you get one, you gotta have 2, you gotta have 3. You just keep adding to the fleet, and then after you got so many, you're sitting there going, what am I doing wrong? You know, but you know, Quadzilla is definitely a great deal. And then, you know, you moved on, and a little bit later, you built another truck, and you campaigned that as USA 1. Got to run with the USA 1, and then Scott stepped into the Quadzilla scene.
Correct. The way that worked out, Scott Bryan, my good friend, he actually knew Everett Jasmer, the original owner and creator of USA 1, and I didn't even know it at the time. But Scott was helping me, and we were working together on trucks and everything, and he called me out of the blue one night, and he said, I know you're going to do a new chassis and everything. Do you want to run one of your own names on it, or will you consider running somebody else's name? And I said, well, it depends on who it is. I'm just not going to run anybody's name on my truck. And he said, well, the guy's was an old school truck and everything. And he said, I said, well, who are you talking about? And finally he told me, so it was Everett Jasmine with USA 1. And I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I think you two would be a really good fit. He said, because he's really into the racing part of it like you are and everything. And he said, I think you guys need to talk and work it out. So we did, and we ended up running that truck. We started in 2015, and it was supposed to be for the first quarter of 2015. We had a bunch of shows booked through Everett and what have you, and we ended up running the truck for 5 years. He was happy with the way things were going, and we was happy with the relationship. And Everett is a great guy, and he wanted to put his input and everything in on what we were doing, and we took that information and kind of had an agreement with what we were going to do. So it worked out pretty good.
So
like I said,
you really actually ran that clear up till Everett sold, basically. Almost.
Yeah. Because Everett when the monster truck industry kind of changed there, a lot of people were going to the freestyle events and stuff like that. And Everett was more into the racing part of it, and he really liked the racing part of it. So he kind of backed off of it, and still had the trucks and was doing stuff with it, but maybe not as much as he really wanted to. And then when Scott got me hooked up in Everett, we all got together and talked and everything, and it worked out really well. We were tickled. Like I said, I was honored to get the opportunity to run that first quarter representing that iconic name, the first Chevrolet, monster truck I ever run. And then we were able to do that and end up running it for 5 years. We were really happy about it.
I mean, as a kid, I remember USA 1 and Bigfoot, that was it. Having the little toy models. I had tons of the USA 1 models growing up.
Right.
I used to take the models apart and modify them, build my own chassis, and I always had the USA 1 Bigfoot rival going on, and that's just such a great thing. And that's going to move us into our second part. We're going to make this a 2-part segment, so make sure you like, comment, share on there. Hey, anything you want to see us do, any drivers you want to try to catch up with this summer, put it down in the comments. Tell us what you think. We're going to come back with a part 2 of this, where we're going to talk about the next segment of Roger's adventure, where he moved from the Chevrolet to the Big Blue Oval. We'll check you guys next time.